Back in 2012, white supremacist Craig Cobb, fleeing from Canada, attempted to take over the small town of Leith, North Dakota, population 16. As his behavior became more threatening, local residents wrestled with democratic principles as they tried to get rid of their unwanted neighbor. The entire story, including unprecedented access to Cobb himself, was captured in the recent documentary, Welcome to Leith. Let's take a look at the trailer.
When he first got here, he turned around and asked me, did we have any land for sale?
I had no idea what his ultimate plan was.
Well-known white supremacist Craig Cobb plans to turn Leith into a white nationalist community.
Here we can gather together and become a simple majority by legal electoral rights.
We live here, we breathe here, our kids grow up here.
All right, no Nazis, no KKK.
That's white Americans hating on us, who are also white Americans.
This is what we sleep with every night.
They simply will not allow us to keep one another's company freely and openly.
Leave me alone. You shall be, I will hit you.
He posts my name, my address. We gotta go.
White power!
The Nazi people, I think they're all snakes. You gotta cut their head off to get rid of them.
If we weren't getting harassed so much, we wouldn't have to do this.
Tom, the gun, both have rifles.
You're running us out of this damn town.
Welcome to Leith premiered at Sundance 2015, had a theatrical run earlier this year, and is, as of today, available on iTunes. I welcome the co-directors of this astonishing documentary, Christopher Walker, welcome Christopher, and Michael Beach Nichols to the BK Live studio this afternoon. Welcome to BRIC, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. First of all, we keep checking, today the film is now available on iTunes, as I just mentioned, and we keep going back and checking where in the top, in the order of best selling downloads is it. So I think when we got here it was at number 6, and then just a few minutes before we came and started the segment, it moved up to number 4 already. So it's doing really well. And when I say that, I should say under the doc category, documentary category. But it's doing very well in overall as well. So this is congratulations.
Very happy about that.
Yeah. So a lot of people will be seeing it. Dave Navarro tweeted about. Okay.
Yeah.
He did.
Okay. Well, there's so much to talk about. There's so many questions. We did the podcast, so I know some of the answers already, but one thing I want to talk about with such a divisive character, who also happens to be fairly charismatic and who agreed to participate in your documentary. So just to recap, Craig Cobb, white supremacist, came down from Canada on the lam, right? He had to flee, came down, found this town that had a tiny population, and was still operating as a municipality. So he knew he could run for mayor and overtake the town if he got enough, if he won, if he brought in a majority.
Right.
So talk about that, and then talk about how you created a relationship with him going into the documentary. Either guy, Christopher.
Yeah. So we read about the story in the New York Times. Mike sent me a link to it, and we were kind of astonished to see that this was happening. And kind of tracked the story for a couple months, and it wasn't until he actually got his first couple followers to move there.
Right.
And we thought, okay, this is gaining traction, we better get out there. And he only needed about 18 more adults to legally take over the city council and potentially run for mayor in a town so small that has a municipality. It was kind of crazy in this time.
Yeah.
And so it was really kind of like a democracy kind of shoved in your face. And how do you react to someone like Craig Cobb, who's trying to legally use our own democracy to his advantage.
Yeah, he seems very. Michael. He seems very shrewd, obviously, and like I said, obviously, on some level, charismatic. I mean, you don't think you get to that position without having some of that. But talk about your relationship with him when you did introduce yourself and presented this idea of making a film about what he was going through. Like why would he agree to such a thing? And wouldn't he assume that it would be a negative portrayal?
Yeah, I mean, it took a little while because on our first trip there, he was actually out of town. He was filming a talk show appearance on the East Coast. So when we first went there, we called him and we told him that we were filmmakers and we wanted to do a documentary on what was happening. And he seemed open to the idea, but let us know he wasn't going to be in town. And then after that first trip, he was actually arrested about a week later for the armed patrol that takes place in the film. So our first actual face-to-face meeting with him wasn't until February. This was back in November that we made our first trip. So we met him in jail. So we met him, talked through the glass, told him that we were willing to come to the jail, do an interview there. And he was open about it, about letting us give that interview. And at that time, we were just letting him know that we were talking to everyone in town. And so, if he didn't want to speak with us, we would only have everyone else's sort of perspective and side of the story. And I think that, like you said, he's shrewd. I think he's very media savvy, and I think that he felt like this would be an opportunity for him to get his sort of message out there to a broader audience.
But he did ask you, right, at the beginning, if you were Jewish?
Right, if we were Jewish, if we were gay.
Right.
Yeah, he wanted to know those things, so we passed his test.
And he did look at our past work as well.
He vetted you.
He vetted us, yeah. Our last film was about street dancers in East New York, but still passed.
Yeah.
the test.
So what happens over the course of time? We saw a little bit in that trailer of the footage taken with the cell phone, doing this foot patrol where, at a certain point he got very confrontational with his neighbors who were in the process of trying to get rid of him and his other white supremacist friends that had moved in. And then by the end, what was the? I guess we don't want to give away the ending per se, but I guess I'm curious to know what did he see the film? I guess and what he made of that, and how are you working that out? Like, he's not obviously just going to festivals with you guys and coming to your Q&As at your theatrical and
We actually did have him Skype in at Sundance. After one of the
where it has
screenings.
world premiere, right?
Yeah, and that was, we only did it that one time. It was sort of an experiment to see how that would go,
How'd
and
that go?
It didn't go very well. I think the audience was very upset that they were now sort of face to face with him.
Oh, right.
And
they
so,
had no choice.
Right, yeah. So as filmmakers, we could have planned that out a little bit better, but we didn't want to announce that he was going to be doing a Q&A to make a spectacle of it. So it was sort of a surprise guest. So yeah, the audience got pretty upset, and it wasn't.
There might have been Jews and gays in the audience too.
I'm certain there were. Yeah.
Or people of any color for that
Yeah.
matter. Right.
And it was in a temple
and white
too.
people too. Everybody should be offended, and probably was. But not by your choice. I mean, I'm just talking about by this guy. So what's the story now?
As far as what's happening in Leith?
Yeah. I mean, yes.
Yeah. So he's still in North Dakota. He's not in Leith.
Okay.
He's not allowed to be within a certain number of feet of some of the people that there are charges against him.
Restraint order.
Right. So he's living in another small town right below the Canadian border. He's recently tried to do what he did in Leith in another town called Antler, North Dakota, which had 30 people. The town was able to stop that by basically buying out the seller of properties. So the town is now bankrupt, and they're actually doing a GoFundMe to try to raise money. So they've been sort of, shattered by this attempt that Cobb did there. And apparently he's trying to do this in other communities, in other places like Nebraska. So he's pretty active.
There's been a kind of a influx, I should say, of work and economy there in the last couple of years in an otherwise very, difficult climate, right? So that's
The oil
one of the
boom,
reasons
yeah.
why I chose,
Exactly, the
frack.
proximity to the fracking up in Williston and Dickinson.
He basically, in his ad out to his followers, he was, listen, you can get jobs at $50,000 a year right near the oil fields. He was literally saying, I will drive you there if you don't have a car.
Right.
Live cheaply and all that. So.
Again, the name of the film is Welcome to Leith, and you can get it right now. You can go to iTunes and download the movie, watch it right now. Wait till this episode of BK Live is over, and then go watch Welcome to Leith. Thank you guys so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.